Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Unique Speaker Bureau International Spark, Shift, Succeed, the series where bold voices ignite fresh thinking, shift outdated behaviors, and accelerate meaningful performance. I am Mal Sodetze, your host today, and I'm thrilled to guide you through this journey of transformation. This platform is about more than inspiration, it is about activating change and equipping leaders with the insights to thrive in a world that refuses to stand still. Now, every generation reshapes the world in its own way, but Gen Alpha, the first generation born fully digital, is rewriting the rules faster than ever. Their worldview is not just tech savvy, it is AI powered, borderless, and already influencing how industries operate, how brands connect, and how consumers behave. And today we have the perfect guide to help us understand this shift. Joining us today is Tony Hunter, a global futurist, food scientist, and consultant with over 3 decades of experience in the food industry. Tony has witnessed and driven massive transformations, developing a limitless appetite for new technologies. His groundbreaking tech exponential future food concept has revolutionized how leaders think about disruption, sustainability, and innovation. He's a sought after keynote speaker worldwide, known for his high energy sessions that inspire audiences to anticipate change and harness opportunity. Tony's expertise spans AI, longevity, and the future of food system. And he has worked with leading organizations across the globe to help them prepare for the consumers of tomorrow. Without further ado, please help me in welcoming the incredible Tony Hunter. Tony, over to you.
Thanks, Melissa. Thank you for that very kind introduction. And thanks to the folks at USBI for having me here today, particularly Kathy. Thanks for arranging all that. But we only have a short time together, so let's get right into the future. Now, imagine our world in 2050. There will be 11 billion entities on the planet. Now, I deliberately say entities because besides our 9.7 billion humans, there will be over 1.3 billion, yes, billion pet cats and dogs, all needing to be fed. Now, it's essential for the food industry, and indeed any industry, to understand what the food, health, and nutrition requirements of this future consumers are going to be, and just who the generation is that's going to determine this future. So what we need is a roadmap, something to guide us towards this future. And I believe that the best roadmap to understanding the future consumer is based on understanding technologies. Why technology? Well, you can't talk about food from farm to fork without talking about technology. Food used to be a bit of a sleepy technological backwater compared to things like the electronics industry, but no more. Technology is now everywhere in food. And that's why this is the most exciting time to be in the food industry that we've seen in over 30 years. Every day is a new adventure in innovation. So over my years of obsessive research on technologies, I've come to the conclusion that we're approaching the intersection of 5 exponential technologies driven by 3 accelerated technologies that will determine the future of food for decades to come. Now, just to be clear, I'm not saying conventional crop and animal agriculture will disappear. Absolutely not, far from it. Just that these 5 technologies will be the most influential in determining the future of food. So what are these 5 technologies? They are alternative proteins, cellular agriculture, genomics, the microbiome, synthetic biology, and our 3 accelerators, AI, quantum computing, and sensors, all leading to our exponential food future. And I'm sure you're all thinking, WTF? What's a exponential future? Well, it's built on 2 key concepts. The first is food is now technology. They are so linked that, again, you cannot talk about food from farm to fork without talking about technology. The second key concept is built on the first, and that's that technologies advance exponentially. And a great example of that, for those who might know of Moore's law, that's the law of computing that says the number of transistors on a computer chip doubles around every 18 months to 2 years. So after 2 years, you have 2, then 4, 8, 16, 32 times. So in 10 years, you have 32 times the computing power. And that's what's driven what we are all on today, our computers, our internet, and our streaming. And that brings me to a great example of exponential change. This is personal computing 1975 style. And yes, I did have hair like that at one stage, but that's a whole other story. And I asked people, how much do you think that computer weighed that my friend here, Mr. Robert L. Gordon, has his hand on? The one with the little screen. And I get guesses from 10 kilos, 20 kilos, 30 kilos. Well, it actually weighed 23 kilograms. Do not put that on your airline tray table. It is not going to end well. Now, fully spec'd up, maximum memory, maximum storage, some offline storage, and a printer cost the princely sum of $19,750 in 1975. Now that's a staggering $115,333 in today's terms. But even more staggering is this top of the range machine came with a storage and a memory of 64K. Not megabytes, not gigabytes, 64 kilobytes. Now, the latest Galaxy Z Fold comes with 10 million times the storage at around 1/1000th of the cost, at 1/100th of the weight, and all in less than 50 years. That is the power of exponential change. Just think about it for a minute. Think about that power. It just goes to prove that today's reality was yesterday's science fiction. So where do these concepts lead us? Food is now technologies advancing exponentially. The future of food is techsponential. But of course, technologies are only part of the story, aren't they? We also have to consider the consumer. Now, when we talk about the consumer, we always hear about Gen Z this, or Gen Z if you're American friends, Gen Z this, Gen Z that, Gen Z the other. But if we're looking towards 2030, 2040, and 2050, we need to look at the generation that comes after Generation Z, Generation Alpha. Born 2010, to the end of 2024, by the end of that year, there were 2 billion Gen Alphas on the planet. The largest generation the planet has ever seen, and probably ever will see. And this is what they look like, concentrated from Africa, through India, Southeast Asia, China, Indonesia, and the Philippines. They are a globe-spanning generation. And they are not just digital natives, they are technology natives. They have grown up with technology in everything they see and do. They've grown up with Spot the Boston Dynamics dancing robot, mRNA vaccines, private companies shooting rockets into space, and probably in their lifetime, a colony on Mars. They haven't known any other reality. And if we look at their interest in technology, recent research has shown that 63% of them value having the latest technology versus only 31% of Gen Zs. Now, how will they operate? Well, they're a globe-spanning generation. So something that one alpha thinks is great on one side of the world can spread to the other side of the world in weeks, days, hours, even minutes. And a great example of what's happened in the past is the rise of K, Korean products. K-beauty products, K-pop from bands like BTS, and girl bands like Blackpink. So we've seen that now as a global phenomenon. And if we look at how that influences Gen Alpha, look at the release of K-pop Demon Hunters. Released last year, it drove a 75% increase in searches for Korean products. And it drove a 231% increase in sales for kimbap, also known as Korean sushi as consumed by one of the lead characters. That is the influence of Generation Alpha and how quickly things can change. Now, if we look at how they work, we often look at spending patterns by generations, right? Oh, look at what millennials are spending. Well, unfortunately, that wasn't just millennials. That was spending determined by their Gen Alpha child. Everyone I speak to with a Gen Alpha child says, yes, we generally end up doing what they want to do, and if they want to buy something, we pull out the credit card. That's why they're known as the gateway generation. They're the gateway to ideas back to their millennial parents, and they're also the gateway to their parents' wallets. So don't underestimate the influence on spending that Generation Alpha has today. So what about Generation Alpha and food? Well, a recent study in the UK, 80% of parents said that once a child reaches the age of 3, yes, 3, they influence all, most, or some of the family's grocery and snack choices. So they're already influencing, again, a huge amount of food expenditure. And they don't think about technology any more than they think about having running water. It's just there. It is such an integral part of their entire lives. So given their love of technology and what we've seen about the influence on food, what are our two exponential technologies that will have most effect on our future consumers? The first technology will be genomics. The second will be the microbiome. And with genomics, that is the study of the genetic profile of any organism, human, animal, or anything. Now combine that with a focus on nutrition, and we have the science of nutrigenomics. Now this is a company called Nutrigenomics. There has an X at the end. The word has a C on the end. They analyze your DNA, and they will tell you things like how much effect sodium has on you. Are you a fast caffeine metabolizer or not? And they will prepare individual personalized programs for you based on the effect of DNA on your nutrition. And our next technology is the microbiome. Now that is all the fungi, bacteria and viruses and everything else that live on and in our body. 95% of them live in our gut. And overall, we are 1 trillion human cells and 1 trillion microbial cells. We're actually only half human. So what is all this microbiome research showing us about food? Well, it shows it affects all sorts of things: our immune system, our digestion, mental health, how well we age. And it's also shown that we're very, very individual in our reaction to food. In one study, they fed the same group of people, the same group of foods, a cookie or a biscuit and a banana. And as you can see, Lisa on the left, her blood glucose was spiked by the banana and not by the cookie, unlike Jane. So much for common sense. And glucose response is very important because it can be pre-diabetic and also accelerate our aging. Now, this is the basis behind a product called Body Granola from Calbee in Japan. They analyze your microbiome, have a base granola, and then have individual packs of different additives they add to your granola that nourishes your individual microbiome. So what will our consumer of the future want above all else? They will want personalization, real personalization, not their name printed on a Kit Kat bar, but real deep personalization. And whether we realize it or not, personalization is everywhere. I'm sure many of you, if not all of you, have streaming video or streaming audio. If you do, like me, you get emails. You like this particular show, you may like this other show. You like this music artist, you may like that artist. Personalization is everywhere and it's coming for everything we do. I find a future where our Generation Alpha say, personalize everything else for me, but don't personalize my food. Just leave that alone. I don't care. I find that a very unlikely future. Now, if we look at how our accelerators are influencing these technologies, the obvious one that we have to talk about in any keynote or any talk is AI. Now, we all know ChatGPT and Claude and Gemini and everything else, but the cutting edge is an AI agent. When you ask ChatGPT something, it gives you an answer and it might make a recommendation. An AI agent does stuff. So you would say to it, produce a 5-page report, go to ChatGPT, Claude, or whatever, put that together, put an executive summary on the front, email it to these 5 people, WhatsApp to these 3 people, wait for replies, summarize replies, and tell me when they all come in. So it gets stuff done. And Generation Alpha are right up there. One of the AI agents that's making waves in business is OpenClaw. Now, they had a ClawCon, which is a hackathon almost, and they found that Generation Alphas from 10 to 15 years of age, from AI forward schools, outperformed adults in workshops. That's how deeply Generation Alpha are into their technology and their AI. Just another example. Never forget, today's reality was yesterday's science fiction. Another major technology is biowearables. Now, we've all seen smartwatches. They've been around for a long time, but the Samsung Galaxy 8 has 2 very interesting things. One, if you press your thumb to that sensor, it will tell you whether you've eaten enough fruit and vegetables or not by analyzing the beta-carotene, the breakdown of all those lovely colorful products in your skin. It will also measure what's called AGES products, which are products that are formed with high glucose levels in your blood that combine with your fats, DNA, and proteins to form a sludge which accelerates your aging. So we're getting longevity outcomes from these devices too. In the future, we'll have everything from smart skins powered by our sweat to smart tattoos, all designed to tell us what effect food is having on our health and nutrition. And we have companies like Human Longevity Inc., which are already taking all this data and from your sensors and everything else and your microbiome and your DNA to determine how well you are aging and the effect of your food on your health and nutrition. So we need, though, to look, we talked about at the very start, what are the values of Gen Alpha that are going to determine the future? The first one is sustainability. 39% of Alpha parents said that their child heavily considers sustainability when they choose a food. Transparency is another major concern. If it's an animal product, how were the animals treated? If it's a crop product, what about herbicides and pesticides? If it's a new technology, what about its sustainability? They expect that information, they expect it seamlessly, and they expect it instantaneously. The last value we're going to talk about here is the humanization of pets. That is a massive trend. Pets are now considered to be part of the family. They have the same rights, they have the same needs, they should be treated just as well as any human member. So remember that when we talk about our additional 1.3 billion consumers, they're just as important as the humans. So if we go back to their values and say, what are our takeaways here? Our takeaways are that we need to address these values for our Gen Alphas: sustainability, transparency, animal welfare, and above all, their love of technology. If it hasn't got technology and it doesn't happen instantly and seamlessly, they're not interested. And if we look at where they are today, 49% of alpha children were already using AI tools at the end of 2024, and the oldest of them were only 14. In the future, we're going to be surrounded by an AI shell, looking inwards to all the sensors on and in our bodies, and outwards with other AIs. So putting all that together, what could a consumer of the future look forward to? Well, in just 77 seconds, we'll see how this could play out in real life. This is based on a concept restaurant called Sushi Singularity in Tokyo. So Walter Davis goes into Sushi Singularity for a meal. As he enters, facial recognition software identifies him, and his personal AI, Harvey, sends his nutritional profile to the restaurant's AI. He's greeted personally, and that nutritional profile is sent by the restaurant's AI to the 3D printer. And the 3D printer prints out a product that's right just for Walter right now. And it's served with a flourish. Now, this simple scenario brings together our genomics, our microbiome, our other three Texponential technologies, and Walter then tries his product, and from the look on his face, it's delicious. So this could easily play out seamlessly in real life in 2050, 2040, who knows, even 2030. Now, we've talked a lot about the technologies, and the key thing to remember is they are science fact, not science fiction. Some of them are here right now. Some may take a couple of years. Some may take a decade or more to become commercial reality. But they're all here right now. It's only their full impact that's yet to be felt. And if you think that's all a bit far-fetched, remember our friend, 10 million times the storage at around 1/1000th of the cost, at 1/100th of the weight in less than 50 years. Today's reality was yesterday's science fiction. So again, reiterate, what do the alphas want? Sustainability, transparency, animal welfare, and technology. So we're in for an exciting time with exponential change in the coming decades as we head towards 2050. And it's those attitudes, values, and opinions of Generation Alpha that will determine what that future looks like. So catering for food, health, and nutrition demands of Generation Alpha is going to ensure the current and future relevance of the food industry to the AI-powered needs of Generation Alpha for decades to come. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tony. That was absolutely incredible. Really appreciate your deep insights. Loved that. And I think what you've shown us today is that the Gen Alpha isn't waiting for the future. They are actively shaping it right now. They're rewriting the rules of consumer behavior, brand engagement, and even the way industries must innovate. I think for us as leaders, as businesses, the challenge is clear. We cannot afford to lead with yesterday's assumptions. We actually need to be more adaptable than ever. And this makes customer experience a bigger priority for businesses, because for Gen Alpha, food is about more than what's on the plate. They value the entire experience, from how a product is discovered, and they're quick to share online to how that makes them feel. We've got a few questions in the chat, but while we gather around those questions, I have one. Tony, as a Gen Z in the corporate space, I've seen how my generation has reshaped expectations around purpose and digital fluency. How do you see Gen Alpha being different from Gen Z, and what unique challenges will they pose for leaders?
I think the thing is, Melissa, people make the mistake of thinking, well, I see what Gen Z are doing or Gen Z are doing, and alphas will just be a bit more of that. It's a bit like saying that Gen Z were the same as millennials. They're not. And Gen Alpha are pushing back against the conservatism of many of the Gen Zs. So they are into technology, they want technology. A lot of the Zeds are retro. They listen to vinyl records, for heaven's sakes. I'm kind of like, there's a reason we got rid of those all those years ago. You'll find out. So, so alphas are their own. They're their own generation. They own no allegiance to Gen Z. And they're very adventurous. They're very experimental. And again, they love their technologies. And we're going to see that will be, I think, the big reshape from Gen Alpha is just how seamless they want everything to be in their lives.
That's incredible, Tony. Convenience is really at the forefront of this generation. Wow. Tony, thank you very much for that. We've got a question from Paul. Paul says, Tony, what do conferences look like in the future for younger audiences like Gen Alpha and Gen Z? And what conferences do you personally love speaking at?
I love speaking at all conferences. I can't single anything out unless there's any chance to speak. I mean, cutting down to 20 minutes was a real task. I could have gone for an hour or two. So, like, but I think that's the thing. If we look towards Generation Alpha, more and more immersive experiences. So that is one of the reasons to appeal to younger audiences, I use videos. My presentations are always very video heavy to give context and to give a more immersive experience. And that's what the alphas are going to want. They're going to want, okay, where's the technology in this? I come onto this conference, questions. We've got things, of course, like Slido and other things now where you can give feedback and can I ask questions and what can I do and what's going on? Yeah, and I want all this information. I want it and I want it seamlessly. And I think that the other thing that alphas are going to want from conferences and events is maybe a bit more continuity. Because often once the conference is gone, the conference is gone, right? But are they going to go like, okay, where's the follow-up? Can I go back and have a look at something? Can I go and look at this? Can I go and look at that? Can I still ask the speaker a question? There are going to be, I think, a lot more expectations of continuity in what people, generations like the alphas are going to look for.
Absolutely,
And,
Tony. And I
and
think
I think, just to go, sorry, let's just say, I was talking to Kathy before and say, what sort of events do I like speaking at? Well, I said every event, and that is true, but I actually speak to everyone from agriculture to manufacturing to supermarkets. I also speak to banks because banks have big investments in funding agriculture and funding food companies. And that's a de-risking strategy for them because if their clients know how to survive and how to maximize their profit, they can keep repaying those loans.
absolutely, Tony. Incredible. It's so incredible. We have a quick thought from Corinne. Actually, a question. Tony, are you excited, worried, or both? I believe that's about the Gen Alpha and Gen Z. So are you excited, worried, or both?
Look, I think hopefully the worry wasn't in that presentation. I'm excited about the future. I'm a techno optimist, right? Not from a political or social point of view, but I believe there's no problem on the planet that cannot be solved through the correct application of technology. And I think there's far too much dystopian thinking coming out. It comes out in news broadcasts and everything else, and the good news gets lost. And I think that, whilst there are challenges, no doubt, I don't say, oh, it's all rosy, it's all magic, don't worry, nothing's going wrong. No, we have problems. We have had problems in the past. And every time technology has solved it. Invention of the plough for more food, vaccines to cure diseases. We've used technology to solve all of humanity's major problems, always have, always will.
Thank you, Tony. Paul just commented about your the previous feedback you gave us. Love that. Life after the conference and how do we create more sustainability with the overall objectives of the conference? And I think that we see this more often in terms of you spoke about this generation, this tech generation needing to have more impact in their conferences and sharing that feedback, needing the need for feedback. So I think there's a lot to think about as we shape the conferencing industry. Paul, thank you for your question. Corinne, thank you for yours. It is 9:30, so I believe that we are at the end of the session. Tony, thank you so much once again for that thought-provoking session. This was incredibly vital for the time we're in. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being present. Now, with that said, unfortunately, we have come to a close. Please join us next week for another incredible session with Corinne Amma. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you. Bye-bye.